On the 31st of August in 1998, a 14-year-old schoolgirl named Natasha Ryan went missing from her home in Rockhampton, Australia, and her family wouldn't find out what happened to her until 5 years later, as in a stunning turn of events, during her own murder trial, Natasha would appear in court, alive and well. The bizarre case of Natasha Ryan. Natasha Ryan's story is one of the most remarkable cases of missing persons in Australia. Born in 1984, she grew up in Rockhampton, Queensland, a small city of 68,000 people, where most of the residents knew each other. Her father gave her the affectionate nickname Grasshopper when she was just a child, but by her teens, Ryan lived with her mother in North Rockhampton. Her parents had unfortunately divorced, and her father had remarried and moved to another Queensland city over 3 hours away. As a troubled teenager, Ryan began experimenting with drugs and developed a fondness for running away, all by the age of 14. She was also seeing a 21-year-old man named Scott Black, which added to her family's worries. On one occasion in July of 1998, Ryan ran away while out walking the family dog. Police found her later that week at an outdoor music venue in Rockhampton, where she had been staying with Black in a hotel. The police initially charged Black with abduction, which was dropped, but he was later fined for obstructing the police's investigation. However, this wasn't the last time Natasha Ryan would run away from home. In August of 1998, Ryan disappeared from her school, and her parents thought she would return soon, as she had done before. But months passed, and there was still no sign of her. As other women and girls began to go missing in the area, fears for Ryan's safety increased, and police began to suspect she may have been another victim of an Australian serial killer named Leonard Fraser, who was suspected of abducting and killing several women in the same area around that time. It wasn't until 5 years after Natasha Ryan had disappeared, Fraser went on trial for various counts of murder, including Ryan's. But on April the 11th, 2003, a prosecutor in the case announced to a stunned courtroom that Leonard John Fraser was not guilty of the murder of Natasha Ann Ryan, and that was when the prosecutor revealed that Natasha Ryan was in fact alive and well, shocking everyone in the courtroom. On the morning of August 31st, 1998, Natasha Ryan's mother dropped her off at North Rockhampton State High School. However, Ryan disappeared at some point during that day. Due to her history of running away, the police initially believed that she would soon turn up. But as the days turned into weeks, and weeks then into months, the hope of finding her alive dwindled. This was compounded by the disappearance of 3 other women aged between 19 and 39, as well as a 9-year-old girl. Eventually, the authorities confirmed that all 4 were victims of Leonard Fraser, a notorious serial killer who was operating in the area. Fraser, who was described by police psychologists as a classical psychopath, was a convicted rapist who had been released from prison in 1997. Despite being on parole, he continued to commit crimes, raping more women and eventually murdering Keira Steinhardt, a 9-year-old girl, on April 22nd, 1999. This was the crime that led to Fraser's arrest and imprisonment. The police strongly suspected that Fraser was responsible for the disappearances of all of the missing women, including Natasha Ryan. However, when he was first questioned, Fraser denied any involvement in the Ryan case. The disappearance of Natasha Ryan had a profound impact on her family and the community, who were only left to wonder what had really happened to her. The revelation of Leonard Fraser's crimes only added to the shock and horror of her case. However, in an incredible turn of events, it soon became apparent that Ryan hadn't been abducted and killed at all. In fact, she had willingly disappeared, and it was not until 2003, 5 years after her disappearance, that Ryan was found alive and well, hiding in a cupboard in her boyfriend's house. Her discovery was a shock to everyone, including her family, who had genuinely believed her to be dead. The police were stunned and embarrassed that they had not found her during their extensive searches of the area. So, why did she do it? Natasha Ryan's disappearance left her family devastated as they searched frantically for any signs of her whereabouts after she went missing in 1998. But little did they know that Scott Black had multiple houses, and one of these houses was where he was keeping Natasha Ryan. It turned out that their last hideout was just a few minutes away from Ryan's mother's home in North Rockhampton, which made the situation even more frustrating. Black worked as a milkman at a dairy factory, and nobody suspected that he was harbouring Natasha Ryan. He appeared to live alone, and his colleagues had no idea that he had a secret guest living with him all that time. Whenever Black received visitors, Natasha Ryan simply would hide in the bedroom cupboard until they were gone. Most of the time though, she was able to move freely around the house with the curtains drawn, making sure that nobody could see her. During the 5 years that Ryan was missing, she seemed content to live a solitary life in the darkness of her hiding places. She cooked, read, sewed, and surfed the internet, venturing outside only a handful of times to move to different houses or to go to a local beach at night. It was as though she had created her own little world. However, as Leonard Fraser's trial approached in 2003, it seems that Ryan began to feel the weight of her secret life. She contacted a children's counselling service helpline, using the name Sally, and told a counsellor that she was a runaway living with her boyfriend, and that a man was about to go on trial for her murder. The counsellor relayed the message anonymously to the police, but they were unable to trace the call. Shortly afterward, the Rockhampton police received an anonymous letter with a phone number enclosed, claiming that Ryan was in fact alive. On April 10, 2003, police officers forced entry into a house on Mills Avenue in North Rockhampton and found Natasha Ryan hiding in the bedroom cupboard. After almost 5 years living in the shadows, she emerged ghostly pale, having had no exposure to sunlight during her time in hiding. According to CBS News, the dramatic revelation of Natasha Ryan's survival came on the 12th day of Leonard Fraser's trial for the murders of 4 women, including Natasha Ryan. When the prosecutor received a phone call from the police informing him of Natasha's discovery, he rushed through the courtroom to inform her father, Robert Ryan, who was present at the trial. Robert, initially assuming the news meant that his daughter's body had been found, was left reeling with emotion when he finally learned the truth. He was instructed to call the police station to confirm that it was indeed his daughter who had been found. In an effort to ensure he wasn't dealing with an imposter, Robert asked the woman on the other end of the line for the nickname he had given his daughter when she was a child. To his relief, Ryan's voice soon came on the line, and she identified herself by the nickname her father had given her, Grasshopper. She told him, "Dad, it's me, Grasshopper, and I love you, and I'm sorry." However, Ryan's reunion with her mother, Jenny Ryan, was much more complicated. Jenny was understandably furious that her daughter had led her to believe she was dead for all of those years, while living less than a mile away. She was quoted as saying, "I hated her. I could have grabbed her and just shook the hell out of her. But when I eventually saw her, I forgot all about that." The public was equally stunned when Natasha Ryan appeared in court at her own murder trial, effectively coming back from the dead. She then testified that she had not, in fact, been murdered by Fraser. The aftermath of Natasha Ryan's return. When the news broke that Natasha Ryan was alive, many were overjoyed that she had been found safe and well, after years of being presumed dead. However, for others, the revelation was met with anger and confusion as they struggled to understand how Ryan could have allowed her loved ones to believe she had been murdered. The emotional toll of the situation was immense, as her family had suffered for years, believing they had lost a daughter and sister forever. In 2005, it was reported that Ryan's boyfriend at the time, Scott Black, had received a prison sentence for perjury after lying to the police about Natasha's whereabouts. Black had gone to great lengths to hide Ryan, and his false testimony had led investigators down the wrong path. Meanwhile, Natasha Ryan herself was also found guilty of creating a false police investigation, leading to a $4,000 fine and $16,000 towards investigation costs. The legal consequences of their actions showed just how serious the situation was. But despite the controversy, Natasha Ryan was not without her supporters. She actually signed with a publicist and began to profit off of the publicity surrounding her story. In 2008, she and Black got married and sold the story to a magazine for $200,000. They also sold the rights to their story to the Australian version of 60 Minutes for an additional $120,000. With the newfound wealth, Ryan was able to make up for the years of lost income and provide for her family. But the question still remained. Why did Ryan stay in hiding for all of those years? When police asked her this question after her discovery, she responded by saying that the lie had become too big. It's a rather cryptic answer, and it's unclear exactly what she meant by it. Perhaps she was afraid of the consequences of coming forward, or maybe she was simply overwhelmed by the situation and didn't know how to get out of it. In any case, the story of Natasha Ryan is a fascinating and complex one, with many layers of emotion, deception, and betrayal. While some may never fully forgive her for what she did, others have found a way to move past the pain and embrace the joy of having her back in their lives. Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to check out some of the other videos that I've made on similar cases, such as Abby Choi, the girl in the fridge.